In May of 1999, a 14-year-old girl made her way to a Hong Kong police station. She told officers that for the past several weeks, she'd been constantly plagued by the ghost of a woman who had been bound by electrical wire and tortured to death. The police brushed her off, diminishing her claims as nothing but dreams or teenage nonsense. Their interest was piqued, however, when she explained that the ghost was of a woman she'd had a hand in murdering. Following the child back to a flat in the city's run-down Kowloon district, they discovered that the girl's dreams were, in fact, very real nightmares. Inside the flat, they found an oversized Hello Kitty doll with a decapitated skull of a woman inside it. The case became known as the Hello Kitty murder and was regarded throughout Hong Kong as one of the most depraved crimes in memory. Who was the victim of this violent crime? Man-Yee was the victim of the crime. Man-Yee was born in 1975. She was abandoned by her family as a child, resulting in her being raised in an all-girls orphanage. When she turned 15, she was told to leave the orphanage because they had an age restriction. Becoming homeless and addicted to drugs, Fan was forced into street prostitution until the age of 21 when she began working at a brothel. Fan eventually married one of her clients, a fellow drug addict named Nang Chi-wen, in 1996. She gave birth to their son 2 years later in circa November 1998. Fan's husband was described as abusive and neighbors would report being awakened by sounds of the couple's fights and the child screaming and crying for their apartment. Upon the pregnancy of the birth of her son, Fan decided to turn her life around in order to protect her son and provide him a safer life. She quit drugs and prostitution, got a job as a hostess at a brothel, and eventually left her violent husband shortly after her murder. Due to these sacrifices, she had a much lower income and struggled to support herself and her family. In early 1997, the unfortunate day came when Man-Yee met Chan Man-Lok, a 34-year-old drug dealer and a member of the mafia group. They both found something in common, and in no time, Chan Man-Lok became her regular client at the nightclub. However, one day, after spending their time together, Man-Yee tried to steal 4,000 Hong Kong dollars from Chan Man-Lok's wallet. But she was caught red-handed by Chan Man-Lok, who later demanded her to pay him back his money, plus an additional $10,000 as interest. Man-Yee returned his $4,000 immediately, but asked for some time for the extra money of $10,000. But Chan Man-Lok who wasn't happy with his plan, along with his friends Leong Shen Ko, 27, and Leon Y. Lon, 21, to kidnap Fan Man-Yee. These men caught the young girl and took her to an old rundown apartment. Chan Man-lok initially thought to put her into prostitution so that he can earn money through her. During her imprisonment, she was tortured and raped. She was beaten with metal bars, sometimes while being strung up and used as a punching bag. On one occasion, Fan was kicked in the head around 50 times. Spices were rubbed into Fan's wounds. Her legs and feet were burned with candle wax and hot plastic, specifically so she couldn't walk. She was forced to consume human feces and urine, and she was forced to smile and say she enjoyed the beatings. If she refused, they subjected her to even harsher torture. Though the torture of Fan Man-Yee was horrifying enough, perhaps more horrifying is the tale of the 14-year-old girl who reported her murder to the police. Not only was she responsible for turning the torturers in, but she was one herself. Known only as Afong, likely a pseudonym given to her by the Hong Kong courts, the 14-year-old girl was a girlfriend of Chan Man-lok's, though girlfriend was probably a loose term. In all likelihood, the girl was another one of his prostitutes. At one point, when Ah Fong was visiting the torturers trio in Man-lok's apartment, she witnessed Man-lok kick Man-Yee 50 times in the head. Ah Fong then joined in, hitting Man-Yee in the head. Though the details of the extent of the torture inflicted by Ah Fong were not released as part of her plea deal, they were no doubt extensive. When asked about them, she replied, "I had a feeling it was for fun." After a month of torture, on April 15, 1999, Ah Fong discovered that Fan Man-Yee had died overnight. Chan Man-lok and his henchmen argued that she had died from an overdose of methamphetamine that she had administered herself, though most experts speculate it was her injuries that eventually killed her. After discovering she was dead, the henchmen moved Man-Yee's body to the apartment bathtub and dismembered her with a saw. Then they cooked the individual pieces of her body to stop her from decomposing and emitting the smell of rotting flesh. Using boiling water on the same stove and which they were cooking dinner, the killers boiled the pieces of her body and disposed of them with the household's garbage. Her head, however, they saved. After boiling it on the stove and allegedly using the same kitchen utensils to stir their meals that they did to move her hair around, they sewed her boiled skull into an oversized Hello Kitty mermaid doll. Additionally, they kept one of Fan Man-Yee's teeth and several internal organs, which they stored in a plastic bag. In exchange for the 14-year-old girl Ah Fong protection, which she also likely received in part due to the fact that she was so young, testified against Chan Man-lok and his two henchmen. In an attempt to rid herself of the hunting she claimed to be experiencing, She detailed the torture that the three men put Fan Man-Yee through. Though the story was so disturbing, many felt it could not be possibly true. The evidence uncovered by police was damning and disturbing. The apartment in which Man-Yee had been tortured was full of Hello Kitty memorabilia. From bedsheets and curtains to towels and silverware. Furthermore, the body part trophies taken from Man-Yee were found inside, with evidence that all three men had interacted with them. Unfortunately, due to the state of Fan Man-Yee's remaining body parts, the police and medical examiners were unable to determine a cause of death. There was no doubt that she had experienced undescribable torture, and that the three men had inflicted much of the damage to her body. But there was no way to tell whether a drug overdose or the torture was to blame. After a trial, which lasted over 6 weeks, on December 7, 2000, the three men were convicted of manslaughter. As the jury ruled, the remains were not sufficient to show whether Fan was murdered or died for a drug overdose. While the jury could not rule that the man intended to kill Fan, they did determine that she had died as a result of their abuse. Justice Peter Nguyen, who sentenced the trio to life in prison with the possibility of parole, stated, "Never in Hong Kong, in recent years has a court heard of such cruelty, depravity, callousness, brutality, violence, and deviousness." Psychiatric reports describe the three are remorseless. There would be no review for parole for 20 years. Chan Man-Luk and Leong Wai-Lon are currently serving their life sentences in Stanley Prison. Fan's skull was the only exhibit in the case. After the trial, it was rarely kept by the forensic pathologists in the Kowloon public mortuary until the appeal process of the prisoners was completed and her birth family was notified in March 2004 that the skull would be returned and cremated on March 26. Liang Shen-ko, who managed to reduce his sentence from life to 18 years on appeal, was released in 2014. 8 years later, however, Leong was arrested and sentenced to jail once again for 12 months in August 2022 for sexually assaulting a 10-year-old girl. The apartment building in which the crime took place was demolished in September 2012 and has been rebuilt as a hotel named Soravet in 2016. 3 Buddha portraits were placed in the hotel as a memorial. The publicity around the case resulted in the production and release of the film that told the story. Both Human Pork Chop and There Is a Secret in My Soup were released in 2001. Fan Man-Yee died a horrific death. However, her name and memory seems to have faded from public consciousness over the years. This memorial is intended to keep her memory alive and allow people to pay their respect to her. Thank you for watching my video until the end. If you found it interesting, please like and subscribe. Take care.